Hey everyone, and welcome to the second to last session of the Education-Led Growth Summit. For those of you who joined our earlier sessions, welcome back. If this is your first session, welcome here. We've covered so many incredible topics today and heard from so many incredible leaders. We've covered topics like best practices for certifications, how to transform the customer journey with education, and we just heard about Intellum's AI tools. My name is Audrey Kraus, and I'll be the host of this session. I'm the Marketing Programs Manager here at Intellum. This session is all about how education drives customer renewal and sentiment at Qlik. Before we get started, I want to address a few housekeeping items. So, if this is your first time, this webinar is being recorded. The recordings will be available after this session concludes in about an hour. At the end of the session, we will have a Q&A, and Greg Nist, who you'll be seeing in just a few moments, will be live with us to answer any of your questions. So throughout this session, I do encourage you to submit your questions in the Q&A box right below this video. Also below this video are attachments. You'll see there that we have an upcoming event next Tuesday, October 8th, for the Discover Intellum. This will be an opportunity for you to learn more about the Intellum platform and how we're helping folks overcome their challenges. Also, if you find that this video is a little blurry, please note that that will auto-adjust on its own, but in the bottom right-hand corner of your screen there, you can click that gear icon. That'll pop up a window that will allow you to manually adjust the resolution of this video in case it does become blurry. And lastly, you'll also see right below here an opportunity to share some feedback. So if you click into that tab that says Rate This, you'll have an opportunity at the end of the session to give us a star rating and leave a comment. These sessions and many of the summits that we build here are built for you and with you in mind. So we would love your feedback. We want to know if this is the right content, the content that you want to hear about. So please take a moment to give us a rating at the end. Okay, with that, I want to turn to the content of this session. We recently sat down with Greg Nist, who is the Senior Director of Learning and Enablement at Qlik, for a little bit of a fireside chat. So in just a moment, we're going to tune into a video of that chat where my colleague TJ Jones sat with Greg as they talked through the strategies Greg's using to improve product adoption and grow AAR through education. So tune in with me to hear this video.
Hi, I'm Tamara Jones. I'm a product owner here at Intellum. I am sitting here with Greg Nist from Qlik for our Education-Led Growth Summit. So thank you for joining us.
Nice to be here.
Pleasure to meet you as well. Would you like to sort of go into your role at Qlik and tell us a little bit more about that?
Sure. So I lead Qlik Learning, where we are focused on delivering learning programs to several different audience segments. So that includes our customer base, as well as our partner community, and internal employees as well. Okay. And then 1/4 segment that we work with is academic institutions to be able to bring learning programs to students and educators.
Right. Awesome. And what are you responsible for as a Senior Director of Learning Enablement at Qlik?
Yeah, so I'm responsible for all of the teams that develop our learning content, as well as the platforms that we distribute that content through, and the various product offerings for how we sell and monetize that education experience.
Awesome. And what are the key measures of success for your education team?
Yeah, so I always start with what are we trying to achieve as a company. So if we look at kind of our top level corporate objectives, they're centered around net retention of customers, expansion within accounts and adoption of our technology, and then also ARR growth.
Nice. Because like retention is very important because once somebody comes on board, they may learn something, then you may have drop off, but being able to retain those users is a key aspect of not just the growth, but like having people coming back. So that means that your content is delivering the value that you've developed.
That's right. Yeah. So when we talk about retention, really we're talking about not only renewal of the learning subscriptions that we sell, but also of the software as well. So it's really important for our customers and partners to have good education because that connects to their adoption and their success, which drives renewal.
Exactly. And you also have like that e-commerce piece into that education program as well.
That's right.
Nice.
That's right.
All right. And what are the metrics you're measuring and business outcomes you're driving towards?
Yeah, so on the education piece, what I look at is our renewal rate of our learning subscription.
Okay.
And specifically, when we look at the renewal rate, I'm really looking at some of the factors that impact that.
Right.
So I kind of use the analogy, it's really no different than subscriptions that you or I might have in our everyday life, right? If I don't find the content that I want on my Netflix subscription, I'm not going to renew it.
Exactly.
So we're looking at how often are our learners coming into our platform and engaging with us. And we're trying to drive up that monthly activity on the learning platform. And then we're also looking at what types of content and what their completion rates are on those types of content, because we really want to drive people through their journeys and to get them really educated and qualified.
All right, that's awesome. And how did you come to establish those metrics?
So again, looking at our customer base and talking with our customer base and trying to understand how they use our products, our education products. That really informed a lot of that.
Okay.
And then internally, I work with a wide cross-functional group of people. So folks from our customer success organization, because they're having health checks and discussions with customers. So they inform our roadmap. In our renewals team, the people that are having those renewal conversations for both our product and our learning subscriptions, they're an invaluable source of information for me as well.
Absolutely. So when speaking about customer success, that customer success team, so they're going to your platform, they're learning, they're delivering that information to clients, and that sort of just helps them, like you said, it helps them inform you about what's the next best thing to do, and maybe some pain points that some of their clients may have.
Exactly. So they get a lot of feedback direct from the customers. They're also looking at, for a given account, are they using the learning that's available to them?
Exactly.
And if they're not, what can we do to try to make that learning subscription more valuable to them?
Right.
So that's really, really important, because I look at learning as something that never stops, right? It's continuous.
It doesn't. Yeah, it's always continuous.
So being able to drive a content roadmap that keeps the platform fresh and relevant, even for the most experienced of learners, is really important for my service to be able to have an ongoing purpose.
Yeah, absolutely. As again, as a product owner, I went and got my master's. We have a program here at the company where we can continue learning, and we also have we use our own platform for our learning, and it's very important to continue that effort and keep it ongoing.
Yeah, absolutely. And then the one thing that we see is a connection between learning activity and product adoption.
Exactly.
And so that's another metric that I really look at, is how on the product side are people who engage with our product sticking with the product.
Awesome. And have you intentionally designed your education initiatives to meet those goals?
Yes, absolutely. So just, what I was just talking about there about product adoption and stickiness. One of the things we realized is that on our cloud products, we were seeing a bit of a drop-off rate where people engaged with us, and then within the first few days, they disappeared.
Right.
And so we feel that that's a learning issue, because they're in our product, they're getting stuck.
Yeah.
How do we help unstuck them?
Right.
That's not the right word, but and so what we're doing is we're using our learning platform and the content that we create to actually push that content out from the platform where it's centrally managed into the product experience.
Yeah.
So that the customer gets help right where they need it. They don't have to exit that product experience.
Yeah.
But we get to manage the learning content in a single source, and we get all the telemetry data in that single source about consumption.
I love the concept of having that learning material within the product itself. That really helps, again, it eliminates drop-offs. It keeps people in the platform.
Yeah.
Maybe they have a question that they get answered quickly, and they can continue within the product itself.
Right.
And they're not having a bad experience. They're continuing that learning, and they're continuing the use of that product.
Exactly. And so we have to think then, what's the right type of learning for that type of an experience.
Right.
And oftentimes it fits more of the category of microlearning.
Right.
Because we're trying to provide just-in-time help for a specific usage of the product, and then let them go.
Yeah,
right?
Exactly.
But if they want more of that immersive classic learner journey with hands-on labs and things like that, they can come back into our learning platform for that type of experience.
And microlearning is so important because in this day and age where, you know, we have like continuous scroll and, you know, you're just people's, you know, I guess attention spans might be a little bit short and they just want to have maybe those snippets and get to what they're looking for.
Absolutely.
Microlearning is an incredible asset.
It's really important. And honestly, I think adult learners, their attention span might be shorter than child learners. And so getting them just what they need and then letting them carry on is really important.
Awesome. And so do you see like, I guess, more engagement with the microlearning versus other types of learning? Yeah,
so we push out the microlearning through a lot of different formats. In product is one of those. It's also really well fit for some of our social media activity that we do.
Okay.
So we do see a high volume of consumption for the microlearning because it goes out through so many different channels.
Right.
But again, the nice thing is we can manage it in one place.
Right.
And then push it out in a wide variety of ways.
Exactly. And so how are you tracking and reporting on your progress towards these goals?
Yeah, so I have defined several different metrics as it relates to ARR growth and adoption.
Right.
And so on a monthly basis, we have dashboards that we build and we report out on up through my leadership chain.
Okay.
They can also see that consumption data kind of in a real-time scenario.
Yeah.
And we make that data available to all the stakeholders in the company. So if I'm a CSM and I'm having a conversation with a customer later today, I can easily get the latest consumption data and activity data so that I can go into that call more informed.
Yes. And I love the idea of having a dashboard, ingesting those metrics, because, I mean, I can look at numbers all day and get a sense, but when you're talking to your stakeholders, having those visualizations, seeing what the ups and the downs are, and being able to pinpoint where improvement can be made is like very, very valuable when speaking with stakeholders.
It's incredibly valuable. And, you know, Qlik is a data analytics company, so we are very much into
Deep into
crunching the data.
Yeah.
And what's really nice is we can easily pipe the data from the learning platform into our Snowflake data warehouse to easily build those types of dashboards that can then be consumed.
Right, and that's something that Intellum provides. We provide data to all of our customers for these exact purposes, to ensure that you're hitting your numbers, or if you find any pain points, what you can do to remedy those. So what kind of success have you seen so far with education?
So we've really made some impacts. We totally relaunched our learner experience on a new learning platform powered by Intellum. And what we saw right away is that the more intuitive and engaging style of learning and the gamification to create kind of the carrots to motivate people drove up the monthly activity.
Nice.
So we were seeing, before we launched the new experience, around 10% of our learner community kind of coming back and engaging with us.
Right.
And we were able to drive that upwards of 40%. By really focusing on the learner experience that provides by our platform.
Yeah, and I like the multi-use of tools, especially like you called out, like gamification. I found that an important tool, like, because it's happening in our everyday lives on different platforms, and especially beneficial in learning, because it's sometimes it's something that people don't always want to do. Yeah. But once they see like that gamification aspect, like, oh, Greg is, you know, has more points than me, or or maybe got a certification, or is on the leaderboard or something like that, and it's like that drives somebody else to say, oh, like, I want to accomplish that. I want to be in those numbers and see, you know, my badges on my on my profile. So
it makes learning fun, and people like a little competition,
a little competitive,
and then you got something to show, which, you know, one of the audience segments that I talked about that's really important for us is our partners. And so being able to show a badge and a certification that they have earned is critical for them to be able to go out and get business. So that's what we're really trying to enable them to do through their learning initiatives.
So how has that success influenced other programs?
Yeah, so what we've been able to do is evangelize kind of the program that we've built internally, and get more consumption and adoption of that program to benefit like our employee audience segment. So now we've got partners from human resources, from sales enablement, from across the business that are coming to us because they want to develop content and get it published and distributed through our platform. So it's really made learning more accessible to all.
It's also bringing big people to you as well. So,
That's right.
You know, it may not have been like the target audience to begin with, but people are like, oh, wow, like there's success in this. Like, you know, we're seeing that.
That's right.
Let's just use like the customer success department as an example. Oh, customer success is doing this. We're seeing their numbers go up.
Yep.
Maybe sales is over here thinking like, hey, like if I had content out there, then I could drive up my sales. I can teach my sales team. And then that just brings in additional revenue for you all as well.
Yeah, for sure.
Awesome.
And so really it's become the entry point for all employees. Like this is how we onboard people, is through the learning experience. So day one, you're in our learning platform, and that kind of helps create the culture of Qlik. It's how we run education on our diversity programs, on our thought leadership programs. So it's really central to the Qlik experience.
Awesome. So Greg, how did you address internal obstacles, build internal support, and execute a strategic plan with confidence and its success?
Yeah, so the first thing that I do on that front is I create kind of a cross-functional steering committee that I meet with on a quarterly basis to kind of review my roadmap and that alignment with our top-level corporate objectives, and they can help shape my roadmap and provide input on the things that they're observing in their parts of the business so that I'm not operating in a silo.
Exactly.
And I think that's probably the most important thing that has helped me be successful, is making sure that everyone has a stake in it and can inform where we're headed.
Yeah, and I think in different parts of the business, especially in product, being able to tell that story, like not operating in a silo, helps to grow programs, helps to expand the product, and gets people engaged. So that's really awesome to hear that you were able to do that.
Yeah, at the end of the day, it's about building relationships, right? You know, we talked about the initiative to deliver learning directly in the product experience. You know, I can create great learning content, but unless I have built relationships with the product team and R&D and marketing and all of those other stakeholders, none of us are going to be successful.
Exactly. Totally experienced that as a product owner here at Intellum, so I understand that. So, you know, thank you for sitting down and talking with us about your success at Qlik, getting users engaged, not just your internal users, but also external users to drive platform success. And so I'm sure our audience has learned a lot today from this session, and we look forward to your continued success together as partners.
Wonderful. Thank you for having me.
All right. Pleasure.
All righty. So I see a few questions coming into the chat. Greg will be joining us in just a moment to address these questions live. So I'm going to give you all just a few minutes to think of your questions, submit them in the Q&A box below. I also want to remind you of the attachments that you'll find just below your screen there, and also the opportunity to rate this session by giving us feedback at the end. But Rebecca, thank you so much for submitting your questions. For those of you who are thinking of them, you will have an opportunity to ask Greg those questions yourself in just a few moments. All right. Thank you all for your patience. Greg, thank you so much for joining us. We are excited to have you here. So we've just been able to watch the fireside chat with you and TJ here in the Intellum office. So that was amazing. And we already have some questions in the chat that have come in for you. So, oh, I cannot hear you. Can you hear me?
All right, let's try that.
Yes, there we are. All right.
Wonderful.
Well, again, thank you so much for being here, Greg. We are really excited to have you here and also for the presentation that you've already given us in that fireside chat. We do, like I said, have some questions that came in, so I'm going to shoot those your way. But one question is, knowing that Qlik has acquired 2 or more companies in the recent years, what has the process been like to incorporate, rebrand, or retool external knowledge bases into your existing knowledge base? And have customers noticed the gap in resources during any rebranding or downtime that came with that transition?
Yeah, so it was a huge challenge. So I came to Qlik from a company that was acquired, Talent. And so we have been working to integrate our various learning platforms ever since. And we've been rolling out that integrated learning platform experience over time. So one of the things that's been really helpful is working with Intellum professional services to help us with data migration so that we could migrate the content from one platform to another, as well as learner history, so that when people come onto the new platform, they'll be able to see everything that they've done in the past. Now, it's very different as far as everything, right? The branding, the color schemes, the everything that goes along with that part of the learner experience. So there's been a ton of work to rebrand everything in our curriculum to adhere to the Qlik branding policies. And so it's really a big chunk of work. I'm not going to discount that. And it helps to have good partners. And that's where Intellum has been really valuable to us.
Amazing. So another question is, can you speak more about how you go about building your L&D roadmap? So what are some of the examples of feedback that CSMs brought back that made it into the roadmap? You mentioned in your chat that, CSMs do have an opportunity to log into that dashboard and see some metrics. So can you share a little bit more about that?
Yeah, so to shape our roadmap, I like to consult with both internal stakeholders as well as our customers and partners. And so a good example of that is we meet on a regular basis with some of our top tier partners to understand the gaps that they're experiencing when, for example, they onboard new talent and they ramp them up using our learning resources. And then they go out in the field to work on their first real world project. What's missing? Because that can be really influential to helping us create new content that kind of fills in those gaps. A good recent example was our partners were coming to us with a lot of things that they were doing, integrating our technology with SAP. And we didn't have anything that covered that use case on our learning platform. So that became a top priority. We built it, actually just last quarter and launched it just here the first week of October.
Amazing. Well, congratulations on that launch, given that it's day 3 of October. That's amazing. Another question is, you mentioned driving monthly activity and tracking that back to renewal rates. So what specific strategies are you using to boost platform engagement?
Yeah, so the first thing is gamification. We're trying to resonate with people in what motivates them to learn. So for some people, that might be the recognition that comes with earning a badge. So we create different badges and trophies at various milestones in journeys for different personas. And then give them the ability to share that immediately on LinkedIn and so forth, because there's a certain recognition that people desire. Some people aren't as motivated by recognition, but they might be more motivated by competition amongst their peers. And so assigning points to activities where people can have leaderboards that stack ranks them with others, it can be a helpful tool in that regard as well. And then I think the biggest thing that we want to think about with our gamification strategy is learning is a never-ending journey. That's the ideal outcome, from my perspective. And so how do we gamify so that there really is no end, but that there's always the next level that you could go out and achieve? So a good example, we launched this concept of a game called The Road to the Data Olympics, since we're a data integration, data analytics company. And people play this game as part of their onboarding to the learning platform. It's essentially a scavenger hunt. And when they finish the game, they've been exposed to the various areas of the learning platform, the various types of content and so forth. And then they can launch this ongoing lifelong journey of earning medals. And so for different levels of achievement in a certain area, you can earn bronze, silver, and gold medals. A good example might be, I might identify as a certain role or persona, like a data integration developer. We have this event called the high jump, which is meant for you to push yourself over some sort of threshold and do something different, do something new. So I may be a data integration developer, but what if I consumed learning on data analytics and earned a certification on data analytics? That would go towards achieving that medal, which now what we've done is we've expanded their exposure to our technology, and hopefully planted the seeds for new use cases for our technology along the way, while making learning fun.
Yes, that does sound like a lot of fun. I love the theme of the Olympics and the high jump track. That's awesome. Okay, another question that's come through the chat is, how do you go about building cross-functional partnerships within your organization? So you mentioned that data is available to other teams. So how do you go about sharing and communicating about your success?
Yeah, so there's a couple tools that I use. Number one is, I really don't think you can over communicate what you are doing as a learning organization. So I not only have a steering committee that I lead, but I go to other people's meetings. So I will go to the support organization's leadership call, for example, and talk to them about things that are happening within my world and get input from them about the support cases they're seeing and how learning might help with case deflection, for example. I'll do that same thing by going and talking to leaders of the pre-sales organization and talking about how learning materials might be used in some of the lead development workshops that they run. That was a really good example. Now they run those workshops off of our learning platform using our learning materials. So we've kind of moved learning. It's not just a post-sales activity, but also a pre-sales activity. So those are a couple examples. I think just getting out in front of different stakeholders in your business on a very regular cadence is important.
Yeah, over communication is never a bad thing, right? Okay, so again, going back to your fireside chat, when exploring how your customers use your product, what kinds of questions were you asking? And were those delivered in a survey or a different format?
So we're talking about the actual in-product cloud experience now, right?
Yes.
I think that's what was intended by that question. Yeah. And so in that experience, we gather information through guides. We use a technology you're probably familiar with called Pendo. We identify through that the person's persona, who they identify as, and we tailor the learning that we distribute to them. So what we're doing with that in-product experience is we are measuring, does that person consume a piece of learning? And then we're connecting that to the actions that they take in the product afterwards. And this is all very new to us. We're still rolling this out. But we've got everything telemetry-wise to be able to assess, hey, if we taught them in a short video how to use a certain feature of a chart, for example, in analytics, what do they do after they consume that video? Do they actually do that in the product, and are they successful? So really what we're trying to establish is, does the simple consumption of learning result in the desired behavior or outcome that we intended it to achieve?
Sure. Yeah, that makes sense. And how do you define customer engagement, specifically as it relates to product adoption?
Yeah, so in the product is, do they come back? on a regular basis, or do we lose them? That's the most substantive way of defining that. But then also, it's a pretty deep product. So are they getting into the more advanced use cases and feature sets that the product provides? These are some of the things that we're looking at measuring.
Oh, you teed that up perfectly. So speaking of measuring, we talk a lot about how education is driving business outcomes. So can you talk a little bit about the metrics that you are measuring and reporting out on internally within the org?
Yeah, so renewal rate is the #1 business metric that we look at with regard to because we sell learning as a subscription. And so that's really indicative of the ongoing value that a customer gets from a learning subscription. And then some of the KPIs that are relevant to that metric are within a given customer, how many people are logging in and using the learning platform, what's the frequency, is that activity in an account steady over time, is it increasing over time, that's the ideal situation, or is it declining over time, and if so, let's have some conversations to understand why that decline might be happening. So really, user activity is one component of it. But from my perspective, I don't want to know simply that a user is active on the platform. I'm also trying to assess the relevance of our content. And so I'm also looking at the completion of the journeys that we have curated and put together for them. Ideally, we will drive someone through the end of that journey and that experience rather than having them drop off somewhere in the middle. And so what I've found is that really good learner experiences, like the ones we're able to deliver now on the Intellum platform, have changed both of those key metrics. Monthly active user activity, that's gone way up. And learner journey completion has also gone way up as well. And I think it's really about good content that's easy to find and intuitive to work through.
I love that. And that's fun, going back to your gamification.
That's
piece,
right.
right? That's awesome. Well, Greg, thank you so much for, again, joining us here in the office and being here right now live for this Q&A session. I know you'll be joining us in our next session as well. So for those of you on the call, I want to invite you one last time to submit any questions you might have for Greg. I also want to invite you to join us at the next session. It will start at the top of your hour, whatever time zone that you're in, and we'll be honoring Greg and Qlik with a customer award, and we'll have an opportunity to hear from him again as well. So I don't see any more questions coming through in the chat, but Greg, we really appreciate your time. Thank you for sharing such meaningful insights, and we'll see you in the next session.
Sounds great. Thank you.
Thank you all.